Late. Welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Today, we're going to talk about the State of the Union address, but not the way that you think we're going to talk about the State of the Union address. We did not watch it, but we still have thoughts. Just because we haven't seen something hasn't stopped you or I from having thoughts about it.
You can still have an opinion, even if you don't know anything.
That's right.
What makes America great.
So we're going to talk about State of the Union addresses. We're also going to talk about MLB. Just why can't they fix this? Why does this have to happen? Jon Bon Jovi's birthday, John Stockton going viral. There's a new Brad Pitt trailer that looks very interesting. And then athletes and communities, like what do they owe their communities? Kind of what should the relationship be? J.R. Smith, who's a former professional athlete, made some statements that had me thinking a little bit. So a lot of trending topics, a lot of pop culture, a lot of sports, kind of a loaded episode. Before we dive into State of the Union addresses, Mark, how are you feeling today?
I am good. Part of the reason I'm good is because I didn't watch the State of the Union.
That's why you're good?
Yeah, I didn't even really realize it was on. I think I knew, and then because my mom asked me if I watched it, and then I was like, oh, because I was at a basketball game, and then I dropped my kid off and didn't even get out of the car, went right to the office, and yeah, so, I mean, this is my experience. And you watched just as much as I did.
I saw some clips of it, but I wouldn't dare say I watched the State of the Union address.
Have you watched it before?
Oh, yeah. I would argue most of the time I have it on. I don't want to sit here and act like I'm sitting on the couch with like a bowl of popcorn and like I'm watching it. However, if there is a State of the Union address, I usually put it up. I'll be doing stuff on my computer, but I've almost always had it on in the background. I was just busy last night. It was one of the first times I didn't watch it.
So this would be a good question for Jason the next time. Is there anything, from your experience, have you ever taken anything informative or valuable from the State of the Union?
It's okay. So here is my whole take on the State of the Union address. I don't even know if what they say matters. Like I've never watched it. I know. I've never watched it or listened to it and thought I'm going to really learn something about the president or about the country. Here's what I do watch it for. And I honestly believe this. I watch it to see the reactions of everybody else who's there. And it's enjoyable because you get some people are hilarious. Like they refuse to clap. They refuse to stand up. You and I've talked about the lunacy of having to stand up and clap when the president says something to show your support. However, you can learn a lot about which representatives, which ones actually believe what they say or believe what the president is saying and which ones don't. And I find that to be the most valuable part of it.
I'll give you that. Because it is always interesting to see which people across the aisle refuse to clap.
Yes.
And because there are some points, but I just think that it is so much an aspect of look how wonderful we are, look how well we're doing. And you're just like, really? It's like watching, I equate it to watching the debates or the campaign things when they say, we're going to put money, we're going to fix everything. We're going to put $1 trillion into education. We're going to put $1 trillion into defense. We're going to put $1 trillion into infrastructure. You're like, you can't do it all. We can't do it all. It doesn't work that way.
Sure.
And if it was that easy to fix, everybody else would have fixed it. So
sure.
I really wish sports, a lot of sports press conferences are bunk. They're just like the obligatory, I guess you should say. But at least there are a lot of coaches and players who have an honesty and a refreshingness and an aspect, especially when things didn't go well, that they will come out and own it. They will tell you what didn't go well. And the thing that politics is missing is this honesty of we didn't handle this situation right. If we could go back, we'd have done it better. We don't have all the answers. We're trying to figure out the answers. But politics just, everything is sunshine and rainbows. And that's why I think it's such a waste of time because we all know in the real world, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And who are you kidding?
I don't like that they call it an address. And I know I'm nitpicking the word, But to me, like an address, typically when you address something, it's an issue. Like you're addressing like what the problems are, and you're talking about things, not just things that you want to improve, but things you got wrong. Here's the other thing too. Like when you address something, you're usually responding to something, and in this case, you kind of get to choose what you're responding to. I mean, obviously, you try to hit all the key points and all the different topics. I know they could never do this. I almost wish there was a style in which they had to answer the questions that were presented to them by the representatives on both sides of the aisle. And I know that would be a completely different thing than an address or the State of the Union. Go ahead.
You'll never see that happen.
No, never. And I understand that. But what I'm saying, like, that has way more weight and value than like a prepared speech where they just come up. And again, it's not a left-right thing. It's not a Biden thing. Like, it's just in general, the one thing that I get out of this is watching the other representatives, because there's a lot of times I'll read stuff and I'll be like, boy, that doesn't make a ton of sense. Or this person seems like they're off their rocker. Honestly, if you watch the State of the Union, you can kind of figure out fairly quickly who really is completely right, completely left, who's a little off their rocker, and I think it's so dumb that in 2022 that state representatives have to stand up and clap to show their approval for something. Like, it's still asinine to me that is something we do. However, as a citizen, like as someone watching it, I've learned to appreciate it over the years because it gives me a sense of where these people, how many of them are just falling in line, how many of them are willing to stand up for something that the rest of their party doesn't agree. Like, it does give you a sense of kind of where they fall that you don't always get to see in their normal statements.
Is it safe to say that if you're completely left or completely right, that you are completely crazy?
We're getting there. I think we're very, very, I think we're few and far between. It's both sides. Yeah, I think you're right. The more that I just thought about it in those 10, 15 seconds, like thinking out loud, yeah, I think if you are somebody that just could not stand or clap for one thing last night, and vice versa, if you are somebody who stood and clapped for everything last night, like I think you're missing the point of the whole experience, the whole thing.
Unfortunately, what I think it's got to is just about re-election. And
I think so.
All these things are orchestrated to the fact that these people are trying to figure out how to get reelected.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the game. I mean, that's the way the system, some of this stuff you can't get mad at these people for it because that's the way the system works.
I just got a thing on Newsbreak and it says fact check Joe Biden's State of the Union address.
Ooh, it's too bad we didn't see that beforehand.
That would be,
I guess watching it would have helped. So I don't know. I thought it was worth talking about that. You and I've talked before how there's a little bit of like class president, like free lunches for everybody. There's a little bit of like lunacy with the standing up and clapping. But I have found, I think there's still a value in the sense of people like watching the other representatives, not so much listening to what the president is saying, but just watching everyone else's reactions and who has a thought of their own and who's just standing and clapping when everybody else stands up and claps. I don't know. I find it there were a handful of representatives in some of the clips that I watched that it is very obvious that they are not in it for self-thought. Like they are doing, like you said, they're either doing what they need to do to get reelected or they are just so deep into the party that they just stand and clap whenever someone says something.
Everyone of my generation knows that when you want to win class elections, it is about diagonal parking spots and not straight on parking spots.
Is that a real life experience for you?
There are a couple people out there who get that and they will know the reference, and those people are my friends forever.
There you go. I didn't get it, so I guess we'll be
friends. If no one chimes in, then I'll explain it to you at the end of the show. Diagonal parking spots.
Major League Baseball. We're going to touch on this briefly. I think this goes beyond sports. How do you fix a sport that the owners don't believe is broken?
Well, here's the thing. Here my take. Because, and I'll tell you this. My first job in radio, I graduated from college, but I had to go back to student teach.
Sure.
But it was the summer of '94, and I was in Baltimore, and I was on not the only. We were one of two, three, I don't know. But we were a sports talk show. There was three. and my brother was the player rep for the Orioles. So this was before the Ravens had come back. So this is the only game in town in Baltimore. We were the talk all the time, and there I get thrown in. I'm 22 years old, and here I am as like the mouthpiece of. So here are the issues from a work stoppage problem. The issue is not it's the players versus the owners. That's not it. There are three groups in this room. There are the players, there are the rich owners, and there are the poor owners. And when they keep talking about the players and the owners can't agree, the real problem is that the rich owners and the poor owners don't agree. And what the Yankees want and what the Pirates want are two very different things. So the long-term summary of it is basically the players union is looking out for the young guys and the old guys, and they figure that the guys in their prime can take care of themselves. But the owners, it's not, I don't necessarily blame the owners, because if you're the Red Sox or the Dodgers or the Yankees, your world is different than the Twins and the Pirates and the Royals. And so, there's people like, we're trying to figure a way to compete. And the other people are like, we don't care if you can figure out a way to compete. We want to win. So that's an issue. The other thing is that they're so out of touch with the PR department. This is millionaires arguing with billionaires, and that is the truth. And they will never, ever, ever, ever win the court of public opinion. And I know the Orioles sent out a message today about season tickets because I'm on an Oriole list, and it said, as much as the Major League Baseball and the owners tried to do this, and they'll never sell it. They will never sell it that we're right and they're wrong, because America sees these people have way more money than me, and these people have way more money than me, and I just want to watch them play baseball. So, and it's crazy to me. And the last strike was 1994, but what the owners, I say they can't do, they can do because they do it every time. They cannot come. It is such bad business to come out and bash the players as rich and greedy and rich and greedy and rich and greedy, because sooner or later it's going to work out. They're going to figure it out. And then when they send them back to play, then the owners are going to turn around and say, oh, now go support these guys because they're our product. And there's this idea that these rich owners, that the masses will believe anything they say. And in March, if they tell you these players are greedy, 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 then society's going to side with the owners. Then they come to an agreement. And then in April, they'll say, hey, come out and support these guys. And the masses will say, okay. And it just doesn't work like that. So they cannot, there's no way these people can win in the court of public opinion. They shouldn't even speak to the public right now. All they should say is, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. But so that's my take on it. Go ahead.
No, so you did a great job laying that all out. So to just go one step deeper, this just feels like such a baseball thing. And don't get me wrong, like the NBA has had lockouts, like the NFL always has discussions. However, there's always a sense that they're going to figure it out. Whereas MLB, it feels like they're never actually in agreement of what the value of the product is. When the NBA and the NFL go to the table, there's a salary cap. Here's how much money there is. Here's the TV deal, all this stuff. It never feels like the MLB has that. It feels like there's never this transparency of like, here's how much players can get paid. Here's the percentage of what that makes up of what the MLB makes. Like, it's impossible to find these numbers. Whereas in the NFL and the NBA, in one Google search, you can find this stuff. So why, as a baseball fan, maybe you can enlighten me. Why does this feel like such a baseball problem?
Because it's a very fair question. Because in baseball, football is run by the national TV deal. And in basketball, it's run by the national TV deal. In baseball, it's not, because the Yankee network, the Yes Network, and the local radio rights and the local TV rights for 162 games make so much more than the radio rights and the TV rights for Milwaukee. And the gate revenue, when you talk about the billions of dollars that the NFL gets from CBS and from NBC and from Fox and from ESPN, that their gate draw isn't that big of a deal because they only have 8 home games. In Major League Baseball, you have 81 home games. So not only, if the Yankees are drawing 30,000 a game or Kansas City's drawing 30,000 a game, but there's so much more money in New York. So their 30,000 people are paying this much. And, if you were making an extra $500,000 per home game, what is that revenue draw? Because, I say the Yankees, I don't know, they drew 3 million, whatever. In a normal season, they draw 2.5 million. If the Yankees draw 2.5 million at home and Kansas City draws 2.5 million at home, if you're talking an extra, $25 per ticket, that so the revenues are just so different. And that's the issue.
I totally agree with you. It just feels like there's still like, what's the total number? How much do the players get? Let's find an agreement and let's figure it out. That's always what it comes down to for the NBA, NFL, all this stuff. It just feels like the MLB has such a problem doing that. Like, it's so difficult for them to just say, here's the percentage the players should get. Let's negotiate it. Here was the total number. Here's what they get. And they just can't do that. Every time we do this, they just cannot just do that.
One of the genius in American sports history, one of the great moments that we didn't even know at the time, I think it was George Young, who was the owner, whoever it was the owner of the New York Football Giants. And back when the TV deal, when the NFL was this fledgling, because baseball used to be way more popular than the NFL, and the NFL is just getting going, and they had this TV deal and this TV money, and they talked to him and said, well, how do you want to divide this? Because obviously New York was a much bigger TV market than Pittsburgh and Cleveland, all these.
Sure.
And this guy said, I think it was George Young, said, we need to share it evenly, because if we all can't succeed, we can't succeed unless everybody can succeed. We can't have an NFL of just the Giants. Right. So he was like, he got it. And, but then, we get these other debates that comes in that you see in the NBA that it used to happen with the old Clippers owner, the guy that got fired that was in trouble.
Sterling.
They put a minimum, yes, because he wouldn't spend his money. He didn't care if we made the playoffs. Right. He didn't want to compete. So you also get that where you have some of these owners that, that are just, balls to the wall to win, like the Yankees, the Phillies spend money, the Dodgers spend money. And then these other guys are crying poverty, and they're like, well, you're not trying to win. You don't. If we give you more money in this luxury tax, it's supposed to be to make you competitive so you can go out and spend it on players. You just put it in your pocket. So don't cry that you don't have enough money to compete when you don't try to compete anyway.
This is a conversation for another day, but it sounds like a salary cap would fix a lot of that. Just say. Do you want to let's wish Jon Bon Jovi a happy birthday, because that's a conversation for another day. That's a rabbit hole.
Yes, you're right. 60 years old, Jon Bon Jovi, happy birthday. Okay. You want it? So give me your thought. Well, you missed this whole era. You don't appreciate the greatness of Jon Bon Jovi.
You will love this. So going through like middle school into high school, we were still in the like mixtape era. Like you put in the blank cassette, you tried to time the radio so you could have your little mix. So at the time, I think I was in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. It was kind of like pop was kind of there. You had the girl bands, the boy bands, Britney Spears. I'm trying to think of like other stuff you had going on. Grunge had kind of ended, but you were kind of in like the Blink 182 phase. All this like really fun music. Jon Bon Jovi put out a single, and it's going to kill me that I can't think of. It's My Life, maybe? Was it It's My Life? Okay. Jon Bon Jovi.
It's the first song off the Crush album, which is very underrated, but go ahead.
There you go. He puts out this song, It's My Life. And 13-year-old me hated Jon Bon Jovi because of this one song. Yes, because every mixtape you would make, you would have all these very like current artists, new artists, and then every kid had this one Jon Bon Jovi song thrown into the mix. So you would be bumping along to all this new music, and then there would be It's My Life. And I would just be like, oh my God, I can't believe that out of all this music, Jon Bon Jovi found a way to fit himself into it. So kudos to him for doing that. But, 13-year-old me was a little spiteful.
You know why it was on every mixtape?
Because it was a good song.
It is a great song.
It's a good song. I won't lie. It's a good song, but that's my Jon Bon Jovi story.
So here's my he's a poet. He is his I think the thing for a Jon Bon Jovi fan, you
said that with a straight face.
That have,
you said that with a straight face, and I'm so impressed.
Oh my God, he is like, compared to other songwriters of the era of the Hairspray, like, the guy's a poet. So, but anyway, his album fillers are really good. And when you put in a Jon Bon Jovi album, if you're from that era and you like it, there are not songs that you like need to skip through. And you put in some other bands and they have stuff that there's a couple good ones, but then you're skipping. Sure. But here's my theory on Jon Bon Jovi, why in the world of my era, why it's so hard for men to come out and talk about how, I mean, he had a country song, You Say You Can't Go Home with Jennifer Nettles. I think it went to #1. Like his voice, he has the rockin' songs like It's My Life and Living on a Prayer. He has the ballads. Like he can cover it. And but the issue with Jon Bon Jovi with American men is he's too good looking, and it's threatening to your masculinity because your wife loved him, your girlfriend loved him, and when you look at the bands that had the really like the good looking, the one that the women were all over, Poison, Winger, like guys don't just wear Winger shirts, but they can wear Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Motorhead and Rat. If the lead singer was ugly, or he looked like he spent his whole life with a heroin needle hanging out of his arm, then it was cool to like them. But if it was a guy that was like looked like a pinup that was hanging in your girlfriend's locker at school, like you can't love the band who your girlfriend like kisses his picture every morning. And that's what I think was the curse of Jon Bon Jovi. If he was uglier, mainstream male America would have been, I mean, we've obviously embraced him because Living on a Prayer is like arguably the greatest rock song of the 80s. But you get my point. It's socially acceptable for men to love Guns N' Roses. It is a lot harder for straight men to love Bon Jovi because all the women love Bon Jovi. That's my take.
Listen, I don't have I would argue, the only argument I would have against it is I'm sure there are other great looking singers who have been accepted by straight men in society. But your point is taken. Like, you're trying to fit a demographic, you're trying to appeal to everybody. And if you feel threatened, it's hard to appeal to that category.
It's like,
a
guy saying, who's your favorite actor? And a dude says, Brad Pitt. And now they start looking at you because you just can't say Brad Pitt. He can't be your favorite.
I don't see the difference between Brad Pitt and Ryan Reynolds, to be completely honest.
Well, you have crossed over. You have just you have beaten that door down and you're like, I am there. But since you mentioned him real quick, his new movie, the trailer just came out today. Bullet Train is what it's called. It's an Asian film. It looks so unique and so different. It's a loaded cast. If you get a chance today, go through, watch Bullet Train. I'm really interested to see this because it's a foreign film. It's a foreign director. I'm really, really curious because, like, to me, a Brad Pitt film can't fail. However, a Brad Pitt film has never been like a foreign film by a foreign director in like an action movie. I'm very, very fascinated to see how this plays out for Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's an interesting dude. Name me a Brad Pitt movie that he was the man and he carried it. Like Matt Damon, like Denzel, like Tom Hanks, like
World War Z.
Never saw it.
Benjamin Button.
I'll give you Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
Even though Kate Winslet was, or was it not Kate? Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
Who was it? Was it Blanchett?
I'm not sure. It was Kate.
Yes. I'll give you Benjamin Button.
Yeah. I just to me,
like, he's the king of the ensemble. Like the Ocean's movies. The vampire one. With Tom Cruise.
Yeah. I understand your point. He has had significant success in ensembles. You are correct. But I don't think I never thought of him as like having to rely on that. Like um, Fight Club, there was Troy, that was kind of ensemble-y.
Never saw Troy.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but that was with Angelina Jolie.
I
don't
Fight
know.
Club, he's with Ed Norton.
Yeah, but that's like
I
when
mean,
I think of Fight
don't get me
Club,
wrong.
I think of Brad Pitt. I don't think of Edward Norton.
I get it, but he's sharing the stage with someone who's equally as good.
I think you're making
even
a
in
good
like
point.
Legends of the Fall, he's with Anthony Hopkins. And Legends of the Fall is Brad Pitt, but he's with Anthony Hopkins. Like,
yeah. I mean, the easiest one, I can't believe, is Moneyball is the easiest one to this.
But Moneyball's a book. Like, he was...
It's a movie. Wait, and not only is it a movie, it's a nominated movie.
No, I get it. But, like, I don't know. Like, I do get what you're saying with Moneyball, but he's in with Jonah Hill. And it's Moneyball. When the book came out, they could have cast a lot of people for that, and they would have gone.
Yeah.
You know,
listen, I'm cheating because I get to look at the screen here. I'm just going through some of this stuff. I think some of his most successful movies are when he's next to somebody else. And I think what you're saying is true. I wouldn't go as far. Like, I think he can carry a movie just fine. Like, I don't think of Brad Pitt as somebody who is dependent on other people being on the screen.
Okay. He just hasn't really done it. I'll give you Benjamin Button. And again, the two you've put, World War Z, I never saw, and Troy, I never saw, because it's just not, that's not my genre. But he has been surrounded with great talent.
Oh, yeah. He picks good projects. Like, he picks good projects. There's no doubt about that. Let's go on to, you want to do John Stockton, J.R. Smith?
And here's the other thing. And to close it up, I think he's so talented. And because he's so good looking, he finally won with Hollywood. What was the one where he won?
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
But he is, even you go back to Thelma and Louise, he's such a talented guy, but I think, there's always that group of people who'll be like, oh, like George Clooney. Like, they're in Hollywood because they're good looking, and it detracts from how talented they are.
I guess. I'm not one of those people. Like, I think Moneyball only works because of Brad Pitt. I truly believe.
Really?
That. Yes. Yeah.
The book sold 50 billion copies.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a good movie. You know how many books have been made into like awful movies? Like, that doesn't. Tom Hanks did the one with Halle Berry. It was like the #1 seller. The movie came out. It was atrocious. Like,
I don't even
just
know
because it's. Exactly. There was a Tom Hanks Halle Berry movie with the #1 bestseller, and you've never even heard of it. That's how bad it was. But
would you think Tom Hanks, like the Da Vinci Code? That's the first one I thought of. I actually read the Da Vinci Code. I don't read books, and I read the Da Vinci Code, and I never pictured anyone that looked like Tom Hanks. But I don't think Tom Hanks killed the Da Vinci Code because the story's so good it had to work.
Yes, but what I'm telling you, like, Moneyball the movie doesn't work unless you have somebody that can stand alone and really do it. And Brad Pitt did it. Moneyball's unreal. It's fantastic. And you don't have to be a sports fan to love it.
Maybe. I just don't think it's that hard of a role to play because he's playing a normal schmuck.
You have the most...
Billy Bean's just a normal dude. Anybody can play normal.
I tried to move on from this, but you have the most underrated take ever of Brad Pitt I've ever heard. I have never heard this underrated of a take on the guy.
I don't think, when you think of Denzel, he needs no one. When you think of Matt Damon and, the Jason Bournes, that when you think of Tom Hanks and you think of Tom Cruise and you think of,
I think of Brad Pitt. When you say all of those names, I think of Brad Pitt. I just read his catalog to you.
So when you go through the Tom Cruise movies and say how many movies, when you think of this, it's just Tom Cruise, there's a dozen. When you go through how many movies are just Brad Pitt, there's 3.
I understand that, but the thing, like, with Brad Pitt is there are scenes where, like, he won for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because his individual scenes are the best ones. Like he has the best. Okay, so this isn't so much like
but
if
what
you
did
want
he win?
Hold on, dude, just hold on. If you want to punish him for picking good projects and working with other good actors and actresses, go for it. I'm not going to do that. Like the idea that he can't do standalone and knock out performances and carry a movie, I don't see it. I think not only do I think he can do it, I think all the names you just mentioned, he's in that category.
Okay, first of all, he won for Best Supporting, which makes my point even more. But no, I'm not going to say he is the Kevin Durant of Hollywood. Kevin Durant's a great player, but Kevin Durant needs to surround himself with the world of talent. Kevin Durant was never like Michael Jordan, threw teams on his back by himself. Now, he never won until he got Scottie Pippen, and I get that. But Michael Jordan took a bunch of ragtags and got Allen Iverson did, LeBron James did. You know, like there are all these guys are like, I can do it by myself. And Kevin Durant has always been, well, where are the other superstars? And I'll go hang out with them.
You don't think people did Oceans once they knew Clooney and Pitt were
well, I think they all did Oceans because they knew it would be a blast because it was like a frat party every day at work. I get that, but
I just don't understand. I guess like in your scenario, like Michael Jordan was the greatest of all time, but Michael Jordan had an unbelievable coach and he had an unbelievable co-star. And so the point I'm making to you is like, if Brad Pitt wants to go,
hold on. Let me comment on that.
If Brad Pitt wants to go and do Moneyball and have Jonah Hill by his side and have a great director and producer behind him, like that's exactly what Michael Jordan did. But you're not like, so I don't know. I just don't understand the knock on him.
Who was Michael Jordan's great coach and great sidekick?
Phil Jackson and Scottie Pippen.
And Michael Jordan was the biggest thing in the world before either of them showed up.
Mm-hmm. You don't think Brad Pitt was big?
And no one says Doug Collins is a great coach.
Hold on. We have very different views of Brad Pitt. So if you want to keep going, we can. But we're not finding a middle ground on this.
My view on Brad Pitt is he's incredibly talented, but I think he is in the Hollywood circles. He is, as far as you said, if you're going to throw him in leading men with the Denzels and the Tom Hanks and the Tom Cruise and the Brad Pitts and all those guys. Or did I say Matt Damon? Whoever. He has done way fewer where he was the guy and just carried it by himself. And I'm not saying he never did. And I'm not saying he did. I don't think they needed Brad Pitt to carry Moneyball. I think Moneyball was Moneyball. But I think, Benjamin Button I will give you. And the other couple I haven't seen. But when you think of how many movies were just Matt Damon, with the Bourne movies, we're all Matt Damon. And when you think of the movies that were all just Tom Cruise or all just Tom Hanks or all just Denzel, there just aren't very many that are all Brad Pitt.
Yes. I guess what I'm saying though is like, I just don't think that diminishes how good of an actor is. Like if you want to
I don't disagree with that. I think he's an incredibly talented actor.
If you want to diminish it, like I'm trying to think, like he picked Inglourious Bastards to work with Quentin Tarantino. Like he did Troy, he did the Ocean movie. Like I just don't think he can be punished for picking these monster projects that only he would get to pick because he's Brad Pitt.
Why do you keep using the word punish? I said he's a great actor. I said he's underrated because he will always be underappreciated because he's so good looking that they will diminish his talent. Where's the word punishment coming from?
Because I think maybe you're doing that because he's so good looking and it's it's your whole theory of like straight white males just can't appreciate it because they're threatened by him. I'm beginning to think you might just be threatened by Brad Pitt because there's no way he's not in the group of people that you just listed. There's no chance.
So let's put it this way. If Denzel makes a movie, do you think it's going to be a hit?
Denzel?
Yes.
Yeah, for an extended period of time, there was Denzel, Hanks through the 90s. Like, yes.
Tom Hanks makes a movie. Do you think it's going to be a hit?
Not now. There was a time. Yes, not right now. Hanks
if Brad
has
Pitt makes a movie, you think it's going to be a hit?
Yes, I think when Brad Pitt makes a movie, people like the fact. Don't get me wrong, like the fact that DiCaprio was in Once Upon a Time and like all. I'm not saying that, but like you can't tell me that Brad Pitt is not a part of the billing. Like when Brad Pitt makes a movie, people are going to see it.
So do people? So, and I'm just acting. And the one I can't believe I haven't mentioned Dwayne Johnson in all of this. Like he's the one that should be the one. So did Troy do well? Did World War Z do well?
World War Z did well, but here, like again, these projects, like you either want to see a zombie movie or you don't. Like you either want to see a historical war movie or you don't. Like a lot of the stuff he does are very genre specific, like Moneyball. Like you either want to see a book about baseball or you don't. Like he's not picking these like large genre, even doing a Quentin Tarantino movie like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like Dwayne Johnson is doing movies where like Jungle Cruise, everyone see this. Heist, everyone go see this. Fast and Furious, everyone go see this. Like when Brad Pitt's doing stuff, it is like critically acclaimed. Like I'm picking this, it's falling into this niche. Zombie movie, that's what's hot right now. Zombies, I'm doing this niche. He did the Ad Astra movie, and it was like space travel. We're on a different planet. We're doing this. Like he does things that fall.
Did anyone? Now I'm just jumping in here. Did anyone see that? Because I did not.
Ad Astra. Yeah. It was supposed to be like critically acclaimed. It fell right before COVID.
It was a COVID issue. I get that.
And it just didn't turn out the way I think people wanted it to. So I'm not saying
so you're saying what you're saying is that Brad Pitt, and I'm not, this is total sincerity, that these other guys, like when Cruise signs on to do Mission Impossible, it's going to make money. When Bourne signs on, that you think Brad Pitt is just more of a joy of the project as opposed to the kind of back end box office guarantee.
I honestly believe, I think that there's a lot of times where Brad Pitt looks at what is the movie saying, what are the roles, and what can I sink my teeth into. He did The Big Short. He's incredibly good in The Big Short.
I don't disagree.
But he's one of like 8 people. But the role he plays and what he does. You could very well be right. So I don't know. Like, I think he's I still think he's one of the 5 to 10 biggest actors we have. And I still think he could like be the billing of any project he wants to be. It's just the projects that he picks, they call for larger people to be with you. There's larger roles and larger parts. And it's just a bigger film than what a typical person would do. It just is.
And you might be right because he's a very eclectic guy. I know he's big into the winery that he owns in France because him and Angelina are fighting over it right now. He's big. I read an article that he was very interested in architecture back in the day. So he's a well-rounded, well-versed, I guess. I don't know if you know that because he had a bit part in 12 Years a Slave. He was like the big producer of 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah. He played,
which again would be a passion project. What'd you say?
I forget the guy's name in 12 Years a Slave.
He played the Canadian guy.
Yeah, Bass or Bass, I think was the name of the character.
So maybe he is just more artsy than people than some of the other guys who just get to go cash.
It's possible. Like he did Burn After Reading, which is a Coen Brothers movie, and it's like Coen Brothers movies aren't like these big box office things. Like they're award seasons things. Burn After Reading. Yeah. I didn't love it, but I like the Coen Brothers. Like I find humor in what the Coen Brothers do when most people don't. So wasn't
Clooney in that?
Is there a delay? Because I feel like you're walking all over me today.
Well, I might be, but sometimes you don't shut up. Is there?
That's fine. Go ahead. Is Clooney in which one? Burn After Reading? Yes.
Yeah. See, I think there's a level where he just makes movies with his buddies because he thinks it'll be fun.
I don't disagree with that. But again, like if your friends are great actors and actresses, wouldn't you want to work with them? I don't know.
And I will say this too. In defense, I have not seen. I saw Inglourious Bastards, I think once, and I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to, and I know I need to see it again. So I know he was in it. I know was there anybody else that was really, or was it just him in Inglourious Bastards?
No, it's pretty loaded. Like it's a Tarantino movie. Movies, they're loaded casts anytime you have a Tarantino movie. So yeah, I don't know. I think he's great.
Right. Well, that was
Well,
interesting.
I'm glad we did that instead of talking about athletes and their communities.
We can say that athletes in their communities is an important topic, like where Brad Pitt ranked. But again, just because you tend to twist this stuff, I said he's unbelievably talented and he is underrated. So and then you turn this into hate. I don't understand how those things turn into hate.
I don't think you said either of those things to start this off.
I did. I said them both. Rewind it and watch it.
No, my biggest thing is you said that he doesn't carry, like he's not a number one. Like he's not somebody who's like at the top of the billing or like carries a movie. He is an ensemble cast member.
I said for a guy with his name recognition, and you would think that there have been very, very few movies. And when you came up with Benjamin Button, World War Z, like all the other ones with Denzel and with The Rock and with Tom Cruise and with Tom Hanks, and you don't search for that. It is like,
but I guess the difference would be for Brad Pitt. I like all the catalog that we just read off of there. I think that catalog is better than like a Damon just because he did the Bourne movies. Like I understand that there's a value to being able to be like a leading man or a leading lady in a film, but at the same time, like that doesn't mean your discography is better.
Well, Matt Damon also did the Ocean movies, which
I understand that.
No, I mean Matt Damon is certainly way more than just he obviously Good Will Hunting. And I think Matt Damon is now going off and doing more artsy roles. Like he just played in the jousting one that just came out, The Last Duel. He was in that. He did the Brothers Grimm, which I thought sucked. But, I think Matt Damon's a little more artsy than we would think as well. But
I think he
did The Martian. Matt Damon's done a lot of good stuff. He's done a lot of good stuff.
I think what you're describing is like maybe 2 or 3 people where like Hanks, Denzel, where you have these people that when they used to make movies and the whole movie was based around like this one character and like the supporting roles, they just didn't pay enough money to have these people come in and do these supporting. Like they just didn't, like in the mid 90s when Hanks made a movie, you weren't going to pay somebody half of what you were paying Hanks to come in and be a supporting actor or actress. Like you just weren't going to do that. It wasn't a thing. But now, like you look at Tarantino, his budget for actors and actors, it's absurd. Like it's insane. So I don't know. Like I just feel like that doesn't exist anymore. That's not a thing where you just have this one person that's going to carry this movie. I don't know. Like when Brad Pitt did Moneyball, if Moneyball was made in the 90s, there's no chance Jonah Hill plays the supporting actor. 0 chance. But in like 2015, like of course Jonah Hill's going to play it.
I get it. But in The Martian, there was no supporting people that were any good.
That's not true.
Who was in it?
Jeff Daniels is like the head of NASA. Jeff
Daniels is the head of NASA is irrelevant.
You don't think any of the other astronauts were famous? Like Jessica Chastain's not famous. Like Michael Pena's not famous. Like none of those people. What's that? I think it's Michael Pena. Like you don't know any of these names. Like none of those people are. No. Donald Glover, which by the way, Donald Glover is one of the most famous people on the planet right now. You don't even know who he is.
Then obviously he's not one of the most famous people on the planet.
He is.
Do I need to give you the definition of famous?
Mark, just this bubble that you live in, you don't know who Donald Glover is.
If he's the most famous person on the planet, I know him.
Donald Glover is very famous.
What's he famous for? Fill me in.
You know who else was in the guy from 12 Years a Slave? I can never say his name. It's like Ewell Chitafor or something like that.
I can't say it either.
He works for NASA with Jeff Daniels and the hilarious lady from Bridesmaids, the blonde lady who was on SNL, Kristen Wiig, works for NASA. Think about what I just said. The NASA, the people at the table working for NASA are Jeff Daniels, Chitafor, Wiig, and Donald Glover, and you're trying to tell me that there's nobody else famous in The Martian, and that's just the people that work for NASA.
Well, there can be other people but They're not. When you think of The Martian is Matt Damon. That's it. Mm-hmm. And all those other people, Kristen Wiig doesn't make the movie. Like, is
sure. She matters.
I mean, Val Kilmer's in Top Gun. Anthony Edwards is in Top Gun. But Top Gun is Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis.
I cannot believe you would bring a comedy into this argument.
Top Gun is a drama.
All right, I guess we'll talk about John Stockton and J.R. Smith and communities and athletes. We'll talk.
Did you see this, by the way? And yes, this goes off on another tangent. It was on. Bill Maher had it on. In '85 when they had Top Gun and he had his Air Force jacket on. It had flags of other countries.
I saw this.
Where it had Taiwan, but they don't have Taiwan in because they're afraid to piss off China.
I saw that.
Like in the new one, what's it called? Top Gun Reboot is what I want to call it, but that's not what it's called.
I think it's called
Maverick. Is it called Maverick? Maverick.
I think it's Maverick.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway.
No, it's going to be interesting. Tom Cruise is someone. We'll talk about Tom Cruise another day because he is a fascinating person. Yeah. Just the Scientology in his career and dating and even just his size, like just how small, like he is just a unique individual.
And one of the great outside linebackers in Pennsylvania high school football history.
That's true. I just went through all that and I didn't even say the Oprah jumping on the couch.
Jump on the couch. Did you see All the Right Moves? Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
It's a fun movie. It's a good movie. And Chris Massey loves it. And we always talk about it is just so hard to get past the fact that 5'5" Tom Cruise is a Division I outside linebacker.
I just watched right before COVID, I had watched Cocktails for the first time ever.
I saw it however 30 years ago when it came out. Okay. I didn't get it.
And you haven't seen it again?
No. Is it any good?
I found it entertaining. I wouldn't define it as like a good movie, but entertaining. Yeah, it was entertaining. It kept my attention.
Okay.
So, all right. Thank you guys for staying with us. Thank you for watching the Midday Show, and thank you to Weiss Markets for being our sponsor. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
And I really like Brad Pitt. There's no hate here at all. He's just interesting career. That's all I'm saying.
I think you were threatened. You seemed threatened.
I don't think.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Go have a great day. We will see you.